So I actually haven't been doing a whole lot of writing this last couple of weeks. And the reason is, as I was writing, I ran into a bit of a, hard stop with timeline. I got a little bit confused about some things that happened 14 years ago. And it was a time in my life where my brother had moved in with me and had a series of reversals and then ended up dying in my home. And so I needed to go back and figure out timeline. But in order to do that, I had to do some research. And the research looked like Facebook research. I had to go into his Facebook, my brother's Facebook, the one that passed away, and read about a year's worth of posts to piece together aspects of timeline of how our lives intercepted each other and overlapped. And because of that, again, I stopped writing for a couple of weeks. And you might say, a couple of weeks? What is the deal? You're just reading a year's worth of Facebook posts. Well, this guy posted 10 plus times a day. He was prolific. And I had to weed through a lot of, let's say, political and personal opinion posts and some posts about like body functions that he would talk about that were like, okay, I don't need to know all that. I had to weed through all that to get to his posts that reflected on his health and the interactions we were having in my home. And so it actually took me a couple of weeks to read through that year's worth of posts and fix the timeline. So I reached out to my book coach and asked her, I really have stopped drafting because I'm doing research for my timeline. Am I off base? Is this bad? Am I just using excuses, roughly speaking, to avoid writing? Because I've heard people say, well, if you get lost in research, you're just making excuses. You're just using one more reason not to write. And I thought, am I? I mean, I don't think that's what I'm doing. I really feel like this is valid. I don't really know how to write about a time where I can't pinpoint certain things that actually happened. And I can't write with confidence if I feel like my memory's failing me or I'm misrepresenting it or if it's just fuzzy. So it seems totally valid to me. But nonetheless, I'm not writing, right? Because I only have so much time every day to work on my book. So if I'm doing timeline research, that is time I am not spent actually drafting. So I did no drafting for that nearly couple weeks where I was researching. So I reached out to my book coach and I asked her, is this, am I basically failing book drafting 101 by spending time on research? And she was very comforting. What she said was, no, you're doing fine. The drafting process actually looks like roughly three things chopped up into thirds. 1/3 of the time you are actually drafting, putting the pen to the paper or the keys to the document or whatever, and you're cranking out those words. She said another third is research. You have to figure out how things happened, when they happened, where they happened. You have to do a certain amount of that to fill the well and to get your timeline right so that you actually can draft, because it's all a bunch of, blur if you don't have those anchors of facts, and those facts take some research, so it's valid. And she said the other third of drafting is letting the manuscript sit, letting it just, incubate there. And so those times where you're on vacation or taking a weekend off or taking a week off or just pondering and being kind of stuck, whatever that looks like, that's a valid part of the drafting process as well. So I took a lot of comfort from her in sharing the fact that the drafting is roughly 1/3 actual writing, 1/3 research, and 1/3 letting the draft sit there. Again, that's a comfort to me so that I don't feel like I'm some kind of failure or behind the times when I'm not, actively working on that manuscript, that those other aspects of work actually matter too. So I hope you relate to that. Anyway,